We got to learn a little bit about our head coach, or I guess I should say a little bit more about our head coach today after he joined Barstool Sports, pardon my take, for an interview at the NFL Combine. And I have 5 big takeaways from Macdonald in today's video that I really want to dive into. And I think that we're going to see that Macdonald is going to say a couple of different things that you're not going to believe, because I didn't believe it when I heard him say those things. But I'll tell you right now, I love that he is our head football coach. If you love that Mike Macdonald is the head football coach of the Seattle Seahawks, make sure that you come on in and smash that thumbs up button. The more and more that I heard Macdonald talk, the more and more I realized why he's a great leader, why he is a great football coach, and also why he is going to help push this Seahawks team forward. This isn't a blip on the radar. This is not a, hey, the Seahawks reached their heights under Mike Macdonald in his second year, and then they will not reach those heights again. This is just the beginning. And the Seahawks are going to be the dynasty of the 2020s, and it's because of head coach Mike Macdonald. So hit that thumbs up button. Now, let's get into the video. This is Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and as you can see, Mike Macdonald really enjoyed himself there with Big Cat and PFT Commenter. For those of you who do not know, Pardon My Take is the #1 sports podcast in the world, and what I find very fascinating about these two is they do a great job of getting some real answers while also at the same time getting a lot of fun answers, getting a lot of jovial answers, kind of breaking down an interview in a way that no one else really can do other than just those two. And while I was listening to this Pardon My Take interview with Macdonald, I went into it not really expecting to learn a whole lot about how Mike Macdonald is as a football coach. I expected to learn a little bit about him. I expected to learn if he's able to kind of crack a couple jokes and be fun or be funny, be personable. But what I found is I was able to learn a little bit about how he views himself as a head football coach, how he tries to design a defense. But I also came away learning that I think Mike Macdonald might be one of the most personable coaches in the National Football League, and that's why you see his players play so hard for him. The first takeaway that I had from this interview is that Mike Macdonald is always trying to evolve. It's easy for a team or for a coach to say, hey, we had a lot of success playing football this way. Why would I ever change? I'm never going to change because I know exactly what my offense or my defense should be. In fact, I'd make the argument to a degree that was kind of the downfall of what happened with the Legion of Boom and Pete Carroll. They kept staying the same and doing what they always did, and eventually teams kind of cut up to them and the players kind of fell off. Macdonald talked about how the Seahawks are going to change their approach to this offseason because simply they have to, right? Last year, Seattle, they had the entire offseason. They didn't make the postseason to build that team how they wanted to. This year, it's a very quick turnaround, so how do they get the most out of it? Macdonald had this to say. I think you always have to evolve. I'm going to have some ideas where we are going to do it, but we have a shorter offseason window. So how do we maximize the time away? Biggest bang for buck during those 8 to 10 weeks. This shows me, one, that it's very clear Macdonald is a grinder, but he's also the type of coach that isn't going to be stuck in his ways. Too often we see NFL coaches get stuck in their ways of, well, this worked before, this will work again, and so on and so forth. When I look at Macdonald, I believe that he's got the same grind set as a coach like a Pete Carroll or a Bill Belichick. But where he's different from Bill and from Pete is that he's willing to adapt. He's willing to change. He's willing to kind of morph what he wants to do to best fit his team, best fit the NFL that he is coaching in, while also staying true to his principles. And that's always going to be what's most important. Because if you never evolve in the National Football League, you will get caught up to and teams will pass you. When you look at the Seahawks offensive stats in 2025, obviously that's a very successful team there. They did a lot of really good things. Basically top 10 in every major category in the NFL. And what I think is most fascinating about this offense was it was done in the style that Seattle wanted to do. Yet now Seattle's going to lose their offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And what I find fascinating and what I enjoy the most about this offense is that Seattle went and found a guy who is going to be the new OC in Brian Fleury, who's going to keep the offense very similar, but not make it exactly the same, right? Fleury's going to add in new things, add in new wrinkles, do different things with this offense that takes it forward and does not allow defenses in the National Football League to just say, oh, this is what the Seahawks do. Here's how we build our team against it. You don't just rest on the successes that you had previously. When we look at the defensive stats for the Seahawks, again, even better, right? Top 10 in every major category while being number one in the most important category, which is giving up points against. What I would say about Macdonald's defense is that you saw throughout the year it evolved, it adapted, it changed, right? When Nick Emmanwori emerged as one of the best and most versatile players in the National Football League, the defense changed. The defense was structured more around him. Remember, last year, Devin Witherspoon spent more time in the slot. Didn't have to spend as much time in the slot this season because of what Emmanwori could do. So to me, I look at this as just the beginning because Seattle clearly has set methods and principles that they want to live by, and Macdonald is going to hold the team to that. But at the same time, what Seattle is going to do and how they do those things will be slightly different. Your goal is always going to be the same, and you're always going to work the same way to reach those goals, but how you find different ways to get to where that goal is, it's going to have to change because the NFL always changes. And I love that for the Seahawks. This is just the beginning of how good they can be. Go grab your Seahawks Today t-shirt now. Only $24.99. Go show that you are a real one of Seahawks Today. Look at how sweet that t-shirt is. We've got the navy and the black as well. Comfort colors, super comfortable to wear. That link is going to be in the comment section and description of today's video, as well as our St. Patty's Day merch. Go get yours now. March is here, so you only have a limited amount of time to go grab one of these t-shirts. We've got the green as well as the navy there. Super affordable as well, only $29.99. The link is going to be in the comment section and description of today's video. Go grab yourself one. If you do, we'll get you a shout out in a future show. Go grab yours today. Only a limited amount of time left. The next important takeaway that I want to bring up here is how this team goes about evaluating talent. And what I thought was very fascinating with Mike Macdonald is actually how much detail he went into about why the Seahawks decided to go in and grab Sam Darnold in free agency. Now, to be clear, the way Macdonald talked about it, it didn't seem like it was one of those situations where the Seahawks knew, hey, we are going to immediately go to Sam Darnold, so we'll trade away Geno Smith and we'll go pick up Darnold. It kind of became clear that they wanted to move on from Geno Smith, and they had a trade that they were willing to take, and so they had to evaluate, do they want to go and get a player in free agency, or do they want to go and take someone in the draft? And then they looked into Sam Darnold, and Mike Macdonald had this to say, and I thought it was very fascinating because Macdonald basically admits Sam Darnold beat them when it came into the passing game. We played him the year before, and he iced up at our place, which sucked. So it's like, okay, this guy is pretty good. He then also talks about how the Seahawks reached out to other coaches that were already on the staff, other players who had played with Darnold, whether it was at USC or at one of his previous stops. And it became clear to them that they knew they had a guy who could play well. Macdonald even said that the last couple of weeks where Darnold struggled against the Lions and the Rams, he said that those weren't really factors into them. They were just outliers. And I think what Sam Darnold proved this year when you look at his stats is they were outliers. Sam Darnold went from being a guy who wasn't good enough to win any of the big games in the National Football League to being a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And yeah, the turnover issues were a little bit high during the regular season. He didn't turn over the ball once, not once in the playoffs. So Sam Darnold has clearly become a very key and important piece to this team. And if Seattle doesn't make this move and Mike Macdonald doesn't make this move, Seattle would not have won a Super Bowl. I believe that wholeheartedly. They had to have Sam Darnold as the guy coming in, being the starting quarterback, because Geno Smith wouldn't have got it done. And I find it fascinating that Mike Macdonald can look at a guy who goes in and beats him in a game and says, yeah, let's find a way to make sure that we get that guy on our ball club. I believe that Darnold is the most important free agent signing that the Seahawks have had in the last 5 years. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me down below in the comment section. Say it with your chest. Say it loud and proud. Next thing that I want to dive into is how Seattle learned from their losses this season, which is very difficult to do because, well, there were only so many of them. But what I think is fascinating and very important for the Seahawks team is that they didn't just let a loss be, oh, darn it, we lost, and then you move on. You go through and you dissect what your issues were. And the one loss that Macdonald really pointed out was the Seahawks lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And in this game, I think it would be very easy to say, hey, look at how great the offense played. The defense actually played horrible, and the defense is the reason why we lost this game, and we have to find a way to revamp the defense or do something completely different. And instead, what Macdonald did was he looked at the game plan. He said, yeah, I set you up for a very bad game plan. It's also important to mention that game, there were a lot of injuries. DeMarcus Lawrence, if I remember correctly, did not play in that game. Derek Hall got hurt with his oblique injury in that game, so you were down a lot of edge rushers. But I think the most important thing was that the Seahawks looked at that game and said, we have a special player. Because remember, Nick Emmanwori only played in 4 or 5 plays of that first game against the San Francisco 49ers before he sprains his ankle. So the Seahawks don't get a chance to evaluate him in-game during weeks 2, 3, and 4 because Emmanwori wasn't ready to play. So this is his first game where he's able to go out there and ball out, and the kid does exactly that. And what Emmanwori did this season and how he was able to play as that big nickel and to play in the slot and be one of the better players on this defense allowed Seattle to stay in their base defense more than anybody else. It allowed the defense to not have to bring extra pressure because they had a guy that was a complete matchup nightmare. You can blitz him and he'll get sacks. You can put him in pass breakup situations. He knocked a ball away from Justin Jefferson, arguably one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League, if not the best. At the same time, he was taking on offensive linemen and beating them with power as he got to a quarterback or got to a running back. Nick Emmanwori would have had over 100 tackles this year. There is no doubt in my mind if he stays completely healthy. That's how special this guy was. And so instead of dwelling on the loss or saying, oh, these are the things we did wrong, or looking at a performance where your defense gives up 38 points, and instead of saying, wow, we have to make all these major changes, Macdonald and the rest of that staff looked at Nick Emmanwori and said, oh, we got something cooking here. We got something special. That's not even going into factor the point that Ty Okada, he really struggled in that game. He gets built into being a key member of this team and a key member of this defense and getting better and better and better as the year went on. It would have been easy for the Seahawks to just say, nah, we're going to get rid of some of these guys or we're going to move on from some of these guys. Some of these guys are not good enough. And that's not what happened. And I think that's very important to learn from Macdonald. And it wasn't like he put his thumb down on these guys either saying, hey, you got to play better or my kids won't eat. It was very simple. He just said, well, I got to be better. You guys got to be better. We'll go be better together. Hit that sub button. We're 50 subscribers away from catching our Knicks Now channel. The NBA postseason is getting underway very quickly. Help us catch them before the postseason gets underway. We want Seahawks Today to be the biggest channel here at Chat Sports, and the first way to be able to do that is, well, we got to go catch Knicks Now. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. Next takeaway that I really want to talk about is his coaching style. I find Macdonald very fascinating because when people talk about him, you hear he's a football genius, right? Macdonald is someone who knows everything about the game and doesn't make any mistakes. But I found Macdonald in this PMT interview to be a lot closer to me, someone who's definitely not a genius, than I found him to be close to like Stephen Hawking, a genius or former genius, in the way that he goes about crafting his defense. In my mind, a genius would just look at what the opposing offenses are doing. Oh, here's how we're going to attack them. And he would just be ready to go. Well, what Mike Macdonald does is he kind of procrastinates. He goes through the practice game plan, looks at a couple things. I don't really like how this looks. I don't really like how that looks. Keeps changing, all the way up until almost kickoff. He talked about how he didn't even have the complete game plan set in stone until after their 90-minute meeting, which for those of you who don't know, that means the Seahawks meet 90 minutes before kickoff, or at least the defenses do. So Macdonald is waiting until the very last minute to turn in his final report. Sounds a lot like me in college. Sounds a lot like you in college. And if you say it doesn't, you're lying. Producer Searle's already laughing right now. I know he turned in stuff late too. Look, we've all been there. Some of us say that we do our best work under procrastination. We do it at the last minute. Macdonald clearly isn't just waiting until the very, very last minute, but he's so meticulous. He's so thought out. He comes in with these great ideas that he doesn't basically finalize what he wants to do until the very last minute. And then when he finalizes what he wants to do, he goes to his players and he's able to explain it in a way that they get the most out of him. It's so impressive. Where most teams, they have their game plan done by Friday. They have their game plan done by Saturday. And Macdonald's still tinkering with it until it's absolutely perfect. And at the same time, the way that he talked about it made me go, yeah, I've been there. I've stayed up until 2 a.m. to write an English paper that was due, the next morning. Yeah, I've been turning in a couple papers on Canvas at 11:55 p.m. because it was due at 11:59 p.m. And it just made me realize, well, he's more like us than we really realize. Is he smarter at football than the rest of us? 100%. But I guess there's a part of him that's kind of like us. What is Mike Macdonald's best trait as a coach? Let me know what your opinion on that question is down below in the comment section. I actually believe that it is his work ethic, but I think closely behind is his personality. He's a little bit awkward. He kind of fumbles around with some of his things. But what I do think is important for Macdonald is that I understand where he's coming from on certain questions and statements. I believe that Macdonald wants what's best for his players and his coaching staff. Now, I think that the work ethic, the ability to come in and grind for 6 months and then say, hey, yeah, just because we won a Super Bowl doesn't mean I'm going to miss the NFL Combine. That's going to be why he's at where he's at. But his ability to get the most out of his players while being still a fun-loving guy and a guy who clearly shows that he cares about his players, I think that's a very close number 2 trait there. Last thing that I want to talk about on today's show is, well, that personality. Because the joke around Macdonald is that he only sees his kid for 30 minutes. That's the joke, right? He had that statement on the Brock and Salk show, if I remember correctly, where he said, yeah, I've done a lot more this year in setting time aside for family. I see my kid for 30 minutes on Thursdays. Obviously, that's not the only amount of time that he sees his family and he sees his kids, but it's clear to me that Macdonald has a good perspective on life. He's making family more and more a priority in his younger years. Obviously, he has to work hard. He has to work a crazy schedule. He has to work longer than most of us are comfortable working. He might have to move. He's constantly traveling, scouting, doing the things that he needs to do. But it's clear that he's making his family the most important thing in a way that doesn't affect his work life. I think the other thing that's important, when you can go on Pardon My Take and be the butt of your own joke a couple of times where you're laughing about, yeah, man, I got an ear infection because of the Gatorade bath at the Super Bowl. How much adversity can one man go through? Those are funny jokes. And it showed, I think, in this interview, the kind of person that Mike Macdonald is. And it makes it very easy and very clear why players want to play for him. At the end of the day, I love this interview because we got to see something from our coach that we don't normally get to see. We got to see a real peek behind the curtain. And this isn't to attack anyone else who's interviewed Mike Macdonald, because I know a lot of other people and a lot of other shows that have done a great job of interviewing Mike Macdonald. But there is something special about the way that Pardon My Take does their interviews. And I think that you really get to see a true person when they are on a show with those two. And I'll tell you right now, I loved this interview with Macdonald. I thought he did a fantastic job. Hit that thumbs up button if you love the Seattle Seahawks as much as I do. We're trying to find the number one fan with the Seahawks. The only way to do that is by making sure that you smash that thumbs up button. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel as well. The bigger of a channel that we are, the more fun and interesting things that we will get to do here. Help us catch our next Now channel. I think we can rather quickly. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video, and I cannot wait to see you next time.